Hello everyone. This video is about the importance or maybe the unimportance of fasting when there is a chronic infection. Someone posted a question on one of my other videos asking if during treatment for Bartonella it's important to fast while taking herbs or other antimicrobials. So thank you for that question. As per usual, nothing I'm saying should be construed as medical advice. This is for informational purposes only. If you need medical advice, please talk to your healthcare provider to get that advice. And also, just before getting into my answer here to that question, if you wouldn't mind taking a quick second to please either like, share, subscribe, and or post a quick comment on the video, I'd really appreciate it. So thanks in advance for taking a second to do that. In my experience and in my opinion, fasting is something to be really taken into careful, should be the decision whether to fast or not should be given careful consideration before implementing that. Again, of course, talk to your healthcare provider to make the right decision for you. But in my practice with my patients, I'm always quite hesitant to recommend fasting. And when patients tell me they're planning to fast, then sometimes I'll say, give it a try as long as you're tolerating it okay, you're not having flare-up symptoms, then, and especially if you feel better from it, then wonderful. Maybe you don't start with very long fast, maybe just, a day or two at most kind of thing. Maybe start with some intermittent fasting potentially. But I do have some patients where I actually, if they say, or thinking about doing a fast, for some patients I have significant concerns about that. And the main underlying factors that would make me concerned about them doing a fast would be if they are underweight in the first place, because fasting oftentimes will precipitate further weight loss, or if the patient seems to be really nutrient depleted. So if they seem to need B12 and different amino acids and other B vitamins and certain minerals and whatnot, say they're on, I've talked about it in many of my other videos, this mitochondrial support formula, this kind of comprehensive support for the mitochondria, which is a combination of certain vitamins, minerals, amino acids, antioxidants. If they're working with things like that and it's helping them to feel better, and to say, oh, I'm going to go on do a fast, it's like, it already looks like you need more nutrients in the first place, and temporarily withholding those nutrients might not be the best choice. And then if a person just seems to be really depleted, their energy is quite low, they have minimal stamina, they might have post-exertional malaise or PEM, those would be cases where I'd also be quite I would be concerned about them doing a fast. Again, like if they are dead set on doing it, then obviously it's their body, they can do whatever they so choose. But I've seen fasting either not help cases like that in a number of instances, and I've seen it make people feel a lot worse in a number of instances. And I can't think of many patients, if any, where they have those kind of background parameters in place, or background features of their case where the fasting actually led to a significant improvement. Usually it's either, doc, I felt worse, doc, I didn't really feel any different, or doc, I didn't feel any better. It's which I guess the second and third one are kind of the same thing, but didn't feel any better, didn't feel any different. But anyways, not seeing folks coming back regularly saying, I was really depleted and feeling unwell, and I fasted and I felt better. So I know folks talk about the benefits of fasting, and in some cases it can be helpful, and in some cases I might consider recommending fasting for a patient, but I would certainly not say that in my practice it's certainly not a kind of a mandatory prerequisite to fast if one's treating a chronic infection. And in many cases I talk to patients about actually trying to not actually fast, because it could potentially make things worse. I think the rationale behind fasting is ultimately that, well, I'm going to take some of this stress off the body. I'm going to take the kind of digestive stress off the body, because or I should say digestive burden off of the body, where digesting food does take a significant amount of energy. Of course, it leads to a net gain in energy. Otherwise, eating would eventually just do us in. So obviously there's a net gain. But I think the idea is that, well, if the body doesn't have to process the food, it can kind of focus more on going into a healing mode. And any of us who have been really sick before, like say if we had a really bad flu, or I don't know, something befell a person, maybe they had a concussion or something where they were quite unwell, oftentimes their appetite will go down. Or we know, animals out in the wild, they're injured, well, they're going to kind of go into lockdown mode, maybe in part because they can't effectively hunt for their food, and they're more easy sitting target for their whatever might be hunting them. But there seems to be this concept out there in nature of, oh, you're injured, you're sick, not going to eat as much. So it's a reasonable connection to make. But again, in my experience, unless a person's body's really telling them, to hold off on eating because they have a really bad flu or something like that, if it's kind of this voluntary choice of like, well, maybe if I don't eat, I'll be able to heal more effectively. I just don't see that happening all that often. Now, with that being said, I'd be curious to hear what folks listening to this video have experienced in this regard. If you've done fasting, it's been helpful in X, Y, or Z way, please, if you feel comfortable with it, post in the comment section below. Let us know, me and folks who read the comments, let us know. If you've fasted and you're like, yeah, I felt worse from that, feel free to post that as well. I always enjoy a good confirmation bias as much as the next guy, but in all seriousness, just sharing your experience. I'd be curious to see what other folks are experiencing out there. If I started to hear from patients of mine, or from folks posting on comments on social media, or hearing from other colleagues that, yeah, like my patients who are depleted and like really tired and depleted, low in nutrients, and they're feeling so much better from these fasts, like I would certainly reconsider the topic. But from what I've seen in my experience to date, usually when we're trying to help the body to heal, especially when there's low energy, kind of a depleted type picture going on, then working with kind of optimizing nutrients, not even temporarily taking away the nutrients, I find usually is the best approach. So thank you again for the question. If anybody has any questions on this topic or anything else, please post in the comment section below, and otherwise I will leave it there for now.